Hey, RecLess listeners. This episode is brought to you by Cody Brenner Designs, RecLess HQ. And we added some new graphics to our social media campaigns as well. Cody specializes in logos, graphic design for marketing, websites, social media, and really anything that you can imagine. If you like what you see and interested in more, check out Cody at codynbrenner.com. That's codynbrenner.com. Or check our show notes for more info. If you'd like to be a sponsor of a future episode, reach out to us at recklesspod@gmail.com for more information. All right, now on with the show.
Welcome to Season 4 of RecLess, the podcast expanding your knowledge and making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing insights, industry stories, and a surprise guest each episode. Thanks for swinging by. We're glad you're here. This is RecLess.
What's up, dude?
What's up?
Ready to go.
Ready.
Back so soon. It's our first repeat guest.
Good hit.
You could be wearing your new upside down letters hat too.
Look at that. It's all the rage, Tom. It's popular.
You can't understand these kids these days.
Can't understand them.
Just got to join them.
That's right.
Jason.
Yeah, where's
He's on a call. What's his nickname now?
Where's Jaybird?
Jaybird. I hope Jaybird could hear us while he's on his call.
He's building suspense with them joining. Give him 2 minutes, he says.
Yeah, 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, come on.
Just never can rely on Jaybird.
Hello, guys.
What is up, Jaybird?
Okay, I'm here.
You good?
Yeah. Let me
Okay.
get these situated.
You love them. You love those headphones.
Getting used to them.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, fellas, you ready?
Let's do it.
I'm gonna try not to scream this time. You always get mad at me for screaming. Okay, welcome to episode. Was that too loud?
A little bit.
You're good.
Let me start
You're
again.
good today.
Okay, let me start again. Okay, welcome to episode 69
Oh, wow.
of RecLess. Is that that's too seductive for the
It
title?
is.
Perfect.
It's a little
Okay.
soft.
I'm gonna do a couple. Let Hannah figure it out. All right, welcome to RecLess, folks. My name is Shane. This is episode 69. I got my good buddies and co-hosts Jay Bird and Tomcat for doing animal names. What's up, fellas?
Good. I'm doing well. I guess my new name. We'll see how that sticks.
Tomcat and Jay Bird. Well, luckily,
Tomcat
Shane
it is.
isn't a great animal name. I don't
It
think
is not.
we'd have to figure out could I be Shamu? Shamu? That's a whale joke.
I mean,
don't know.
Grandpa Shane's fine.
Grandpa's pretty good. Yeah, no, I get that. How you doing, boys? Everything going all right?
I'm sure there's an animal at the zoo we can figure out a name
That's
that goes
right.
with Shane.
Shaneopotamus or something? There's got to be something.
Back to our infamous zoo conversations.
Porcupine. Was that my animal? Was it porcupine?
I think so.
I
No.
thought they were at
Was
all
it?
zoos. I stand by whatever I said in season 1. Felt like I was
I mean, you're
judged
going to stand
harshly.
by anything you've ever said, for sure.
Our guest's pseudonym today is Back So Soon, and
Back so soon.
Sure, they are ready to also leave so soon
Leave
after this
so soon.
this opening.
No doubt. We were in Boston a couple weeks ago, and we got the opportunity to stay a night in the same hotel room. It was one of those where we were going to be in Boston late and up early, and why get 3 rooms when we can get 1? And that was
Yeah,
that
why?
was a fun, huh?
I said, yeah, why?
Why? Yeah, that was a fun night, fun little experience. Tom, the diva that he is, got a full like king size bed to himself. I had to sleep on the couch. Jay slept on some platform, like some pedestal
Like
platform.
a bench.
Yeah, Jay
Kinda
connected
just
a bench
made
to a
my own
chair.
bed.
Yeah, so Tom definitely kept his top billing status of getting the cart with his name on it, getting the full bed to himself.
I didn't move much either. I slept on the very edge of that
No,
bed.
that's not the narrative we're going with. He fucking splayed out, earmuff Rooney, but he fucking splayed out all the way on that king size bed. Quite funny. But it made me think if we ever had to travel again as a group, the three of us in one room, where would y'all choose for us to go? What destination would you want to see us travel together in? Like we did, which was really cool. For the folks that don't know, we got the opportunity to speak at the Massachusetts State Conference, and we were in Boston for a night, and we walked together, we ate together, we slept together in the same hotel room. We weren't away from each other for that 24 hours essentially, and so it's a cool way to travel. And so, where else would you like to see us travel that way, where we stayed in one room, we ate at the same restaurant? Although Jay did leave us for a little bit, Tom.
It's true.
He said, "I found a better set of friends. Peace out. I'll catch up with you."
When was this?
He doesn't even remember.
Oh, okay. But you joined me. It wasn't that long. It was like
he left us.
Jay? What were your two friends' names again?
Aaron and Leah.
Aaron and Kara.
Well,
yeah.
They are apparently not memorable enough for you to actually remember leaving us.
Let me just say it again. Aaron and Kara. Hannah, just edit that in. Perfect. Thank you.
That's funny.
That's a good question. In reflection,
because maybe it's different than when you actually someplace you want to travel without us, right? That's the question. Where would you want to travel, us three, and why?
Logistically, I guess I would try to go to any place that we haven't been already, right? Or together, I should say, so that we could maybe experience or show each other a little bit of maybe our own knowledge of a place that either we know or haven't experienced before. On the logistics side, though, I've done this before with personal trips. The only regret or take back from that is that it's hard to really enjoy the whole experience and time together when we knew we had to get up. We had flights early at 6 a.m. So, realistically, what are you going to be doing that night? You're kind of thinking about, oh, am I ready to go? We got to get up at 4 or whatever it was, 3:45.
Yeah.
Although we got up a little earlier than we needed to because of Shane's fear of
being left
behind, missing his flights. Yes, he showed up.
I'm not a world traveler. This is not something that feels comfortable to me.
So that would be the first thing. I would make sure that whatever it was, we either had a day or an extra day so that we could really enjoy that entire time.
We did get some time in the terminal, Tom, you and I. We found a monster, sat and talked. That was good. That was nice.
Yes, that was
without
nice.
Jay.
Nice.
We always like a little time without Jay.
A little quiet time. So, all right. So if I'm going to get specific, knowing that I'm setting some parameters there and also knowing that we would have done a little better job of planning the meals, because that was a whole thing as well. We were not prepared.
Kept striking out on the meals, didn't we?
We had some bad luck too. Bad luck.
We did.
So there's two that come off to the top of my head. They're not necessarily new places to me, but I would love to go and experience Charleston with the two of you because I know that I've been wanting to get back. And I know that Jay has an extremely great knowledge of where to go, where to eat, places that I wouldn't have experienced when I went with Melissa. I think 2 really short trips that we went. Charleston would be one. And then I'm looking forward to Orlando. I would love to really show you a little bit of the side of why it means so much to me, why I enjoy it. I know that we joke about it and that Shane's basically going to be going to Orlando because he's forced to through the NRPA conference. Yep. But I'm excited to walk around and share a little bit of my passion and why it is what it is to me in my life.
That's interesting because I like the idea that it's because like we're all traveling, but you're the lead in that one, right? Like I think that makes some sense in some ways because you kind of did that in Boston. You kind of had some ways of places that you thought about where we should go, and that was the best part about it in some ways was.
Jay had some great places for us to walk around and visit too, so that was helpful, and that's why
I was just a passenger. Like I was just like wherever I want to go, wherever we go.
Yeah, you were definitely a passenger, and especially in that Uber ride. But
oh man, so this is tough. I actually have like 2 things that came to mind because one of them I think would be Shane's nightmare, but
most of them would be. Let's be honest.
But Tom would love it because of our constant passion for food, and that would be New York City. And I've only been twice, and it's a city that if you've never been, or even if you've been 10 times, it's never the same because there's always new things popping up and there's so many different boroughs and all these different areas to go to. And from a food perspective, it's probably some of the best places in the world. So, and I just love a city. We talked about that when we were walking around Boston. And I think, Shane, you're starting to kind of see some of the benefits of like being in a big city. And not that you're anti that, but it was, there's some really neat things when you're walking around and architecturally and just people watching and history and all these different things that you can enjoy. And New York City has all of that and way beyond. So I think that'd be fun. The other place is New Orleans. We've been there before, but I know we've enjoyed that food. And there's also that same like kind of history and culture and architectural stuff that we've looked at there. But we've been there before. So I think that's an easy one to say that like all three of us have enjoyed that. So if I'm going with one, it's New York City.
Yeah, my thought process was New Orleans at first too, just because we have all made memories there. We enjoy some of the different things that we've done as a group there. So that would be fun. But as Tom was talking, I was thinking, the perspective of that, whatever trip I choose, y'all are going based on my like leadership or whatever on, where we're visiting. And I almost thought it's a place I've never been to, but I think it'd have incredible architecture. I'd almost want to go, and it's going to drive Becca and Esther insane because they've been trying to get me to Europe for years, but just going to some spot in Europe and like catching a European soccer game, not even a Tottenham game, just to see that type of experience and see some of these historically old plazas and buildings. I think that would be incredibly interesting to go do that.
RecLess abroad sounds amazing. First of all, we can
get someone to sponsor that.
I think we talked a little bit about this in our travels too. I don't remember when the conversation or the context, or if it was one of these episodes about. It might have been like one of the last episodes about how the recreation scene is just different there. Mm-hmm. So it'd be kind of cool for that.
That would be really cool. Yeah,
and I agree. When I had the really nice opportunity to do a 2-week honeymoon with Melissa in Europe, London is a place, or just in general, England would be. I would love to experience that with both of you. I think you would both get a lot out of that experience and enjoy it.
I hate the food, but yeah.
There were some good spots to eat. Okay. We'd find them. We would seek them out, and I would definitely agree on the soccer experience or football or whatever you want to call it. I've never experienced it at that level before.
Yeah, I haven't either. And my daughter has. She lived in Milan for a while and got to see Tottenham versus Inter Milan in a Champions League game, which was crazy. But just to catch any game over there and just see the passion that people have, I think it's probably rivals it's like a Bills Mafia type section or something, but it's on both sides. And, I think it'd be cool to see in some ways.
Just minus the tables.
Minus the tables. Oh, I bet they break some tables.
We could find one.
Well, that was fun. Let's get to my guest. So back so soon is their hint, which is great. Jay, for you specifically, they would refer to themselves as a Mainer. They grew up in Maine.
Okay.
That may come up in conversation. They were a competitive swimmer. It's the only sport they played, but they swam competitively through college. They went to Clark University where they were a comms major and got into the field as a YMCA, which is, I think Jay's done a little YMCA work as well. So they got into the field in the Y. They were a Y kid. They grew up in the Y scene, did all the competitive swimming stuff and the aquatic stuff with the Y as well. At the Y, they worked as a camp counselor, lifeguard. They did aquatics, youth sports, adult programs, camps, tennis, preschool, daycare, memberships. They ultimately worked up from a coordinator and then were promoted to operations. So they ran all the gamuts of the Y experience. And then they went into a field, which is what we're going to talk to them about today, that we haven't had anyone actively do it. We've had a previous guest that had done this at one time in their career. But I think this is our first person to be active in this area of our industry. So this will be, I think, a really interesting conversation for that. Any hits right now? Is it anybody coming to mind at all?
I got nothing.
Okay. So we've shared a room with this person. We fairly recently, even as a podcast, talked about how impressed we were with their organization and some of their leadership. They have been in their role for 4 years. They entered. Okay.
I got an maybe. All right, go ahead.
They entered in a rebuilding stage, but they've seen some incredible growth in their organization. They've grown their agency over 36% in their last 4 years. Trying to see if there's any other way I can hint to see if Tom's on track or not. Okay. So no guesses yet.
No.
Maybe?
The 4 years gave me a little bit in somewhere you said that but I think I might be off.
Okay. They have a spouse that works in government, not in Parks and Rec, in government, IT director. And they're in a role that they serve as our biggest advocates.
The IT director or
no, their role.
Guest. Okay.
Yeah, their role. They serve as our biggest advocate. Okay. So I think we stumped you. The timing of this is incredible. I was super excited it worked out the way it did. The mass episode that we did released today.
Yep.
Our guest is the executive director of the Massachusetts State's Parks and Rec Conference, Katie Dupont. Katie, come on.
Cool.
Wow, look at that. Back so soon. That makes
And
so
I like
much more
the name.
sense right
it does
now.
make a lot of sense.
My video won't turn on, but I'm here.
Hey, what's up? See if I can just say ask to start video. Oh, there she is.
There it is. Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hi guys,
Awesome.
how are you?
What's
Great.
going on?
Good to see you again so soon.
Katie is super organized, guys. She totally runs an association. She's the first guest I've ever had that I had to get on a chat with her ahead of time. We hopped on yesterday. I did the Tom, and then she was texting me this morning about when she was hopping on our chat. I was like, man, I was like, Katie, I'm terrible at this. Everyone that listens, all 4 guests will know I'm terrible at this. But I said, I'll get on and I'll butcher something sooner or later. But she's been great. So, Katie, thanks for coming on. Super excited to have you.
No, this is excellent. Hopefully, you've had a lot of Massachusetts.
Yeah, this has
You're
been
not sick of it
heavy.
yet.
No, this is great. So let me kick us off with the first question, then the guys will get to theirs as well.
Yeah.
We talked about this. We talked about this in Boston, just the 3 of us, and we've talked about it, I think, on the podcast when we had Meredith or whoever else we had afterwards on. We talked about that one. Anyways, I was terribly impressed with how the passion, the overall feel. I've been to a couple different conferences now. Y'all had the most engaged, upbeat membership I've ever seen. They were pro getting to meet everyone. Sometimes you go to conferences and you see an aspect of those people there. Your whole conference just completely embraced that it was a professional development conference, that they were there with other park and rec professionals, and just there was an energy and a vibe about the mass conference that I don't think I've ever felt before. And so I think that has to be to your credit, especially with some of the growth and the things that you've done.
Yeah.
So that's got to be some sort of great responsibility that you have to keep that energy going. You have to make sure these folks are happy where they're at and that they want to come back every year. How do you do that as the executive director of that? Because it's a large organization that you serve, and state conferences have very small staffs, right? You probably only have a couple full-time staff members. And so how do you do that? How do you keep that energy going and keep them engaged all year round?
So many things. So I will let you know, I do not have a staff.
Oh, so small staff is one. Yeah.
And I am actually technically part-time.
Wow.
So I do all this within that realm of time that I am given. But no, I'm definitely working over hours, and that's okay. As we all are to the profession. So someday, hopefully, we'll move out of that. But no, I work with an amazing group of people. I was saying to Shane, I've been in this role for 4 years. Was from the Y before that, had worked my way up from aquatics into branch operations as an associate executive director. Came in at the tail of COVID, so we all know how that period went for everybody. Doesn't matter what field you're in, right? But when I came in as the executive director, we were definitely in a rebuilding stage, and we've taken it from I think from point A to point B within the last 4 years. Like Shane said, our membership has increased 36%. We've done a lot of work with
a lot of new members too, correct?
What was that?
A lot of new members too, correct?
Absolutely. And I think I've been really intentional about who we're serving. I think that's a big piece of it, is the board and I have really focused on who are we working for? What are we doing? What are we doing to support these people? we didn't want it to be top heavy. We want to support everybody in the Parks and Rec field within our state. And particularly those new professionals was an area that we were not focusing on. And that was okay, but it wasn't an area that I wanted to stay in. And we've seen a lot of growth, particularly within that field, but also just them feeling comfortable in being in the field. And I think that shows while at the conference, because it's not just, you saw everybody, right? And like you said, everybody's together, everybody's networking, conversations are flowing. And I think it's because of all of that, if that makes sense. We are broken into 6 regions within our state, and I have really amazing regional reps that help support me in those regions. 4 out of the 6 meet monthly, and I think that helps a great deal in the support piece because they get to connect with each other, not reinvent the wheel, and work together. But I think one of the unique things is, although we have these regions and they're really strong within the regions, you saw something magical happen. You wouldn't have known about the regions as much when they're all together. They're just excited to be together and to network and to work together through the conference.
It was a party the whole time we were there.
I know.
There was such energy. Crew. It was incredible.
Massachusetts people.
Yeah. Well, Katie, I could attest from. I want to first of all thank you and Mark Galani, because you kind of were, you both gave me a little bit of my first experience or break, whatever you want to call it.
Diva experience.
Two years ago.
Yes.
In 23, that was the first state conference that I was ever. Mark had read a article and reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you consider submitting?" And at that time, 2 years ago, Janet Bartnick, one of our former guests and friends, who is an amazing presenter, amazing
current
at everything.
Friend.
What's that?
Former guest, but current friend.
Current friend, yes. Still a friend despite the guest appearance, right? So Janet was the keynote at your lunch, I believe, at that time, and she delivered one of the most impactful. There's something about what was the gentleman's name, John? The keynote this year.
Oh, it was Annie.
It was Annie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Annie was the keynote. So you've got this obviously list of really great people who have been coming, right? You have to attract those, and that helps, right? That sets the tone and the energy. Janet did exactly that too. And I remember when I was presenting, I had followed her in a room that she had just presented just a general session in, and very intimidating, right? Because she has this full room. And anyway, I just wanted to thank you and Mark. My question is, I've seen this, we have a similar situation in our state in terms of, I would say, size and staff makeup, regions, the way it's broken up. One of the biggest challenges that I would assume, or at least for my time on the board and working with the executive director, is that you're working through a board, an executive board, who is always rotating. And so, but you're the constant in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You have some great individuals in consistency, having Mark doing what he's been doing for probably a few years, I assume now, if he was dating back to 23. And we had a chance to have Nick Campion, who's going to be one of your presidents soon enough, as our guest. Yeah. And then we also all of us had great conversations with Elaine Prue, who is your current president, correct?
Yeah.
And Elaine has some SUNY Brockport ties and some New York. She worked in Central New York. So really great to catch up with her every time. What is the secret sauce to working through boards like that, who are typically, at least in our setup, and I'm sure other states are similar, their full-time jobs are dedicated to their agency? It is very challenging to get them to really commit and do the work that I'm sure that you're trying to accomplish, but you can only draw so much, right? They have all of these other responsibilities,
and you may need them to do it for you to move on, but they have another job. Yeah.
So how is the navigation piece with that, with turnover and again, just trying to really rally, engage volunteers who have full-time jobs?
Yes. Well, listen, I'm still looking for the secret sauce, so we'll start with that. And I will take a moment to and also thank Mark. Mark is amazing. He's so easy to work with and so committed, and we work really well together. So we've had a lot of great times over the past 3 years. We've been doing this together and pulling things in. We're learning every year too, and our best way to find those speakers and support those speakers and getting them. But he's awesome. So thank you for thanking him. I think one of the things since I've come on to is exactly what you just said, is it's this interesting setup where I'm working for the board, yet the board is working for me. So that's why the team is important, right? It's not, I've been to many meetings with them, and particularly when I manage a board orientation and saying like, I am nothing without you, right? Like I need your support in order for me to carry the work that I am able to do for you too. But one of the things we've really tried to focus on is minimizing the day-to-day meetings that we're having within MRPA, right? You guys are volunteers, they are volunteers, and I'm trying to be respectful of that piece so that they want to be here and they want to be assisting us and not feeling like I'm wearing them down all the time. So we've changed the number of board meetings, for example, every month, where we used to meet every month and now we meet every other month. And so it's like little things, but they really do add up. Same with our committee meetings for the conference. We used to bring everybody into a meeting and then I'd have 30 people sitting in a meeting and really nothing got accomplished by the end of the meeting. So just really being intentional about our framework and the time that we're asking people to devote to MRPA, I think has helped them want to be more a part of it in some ways, because they can find that balance. And then my role is to be here to support them so that nothing falls behind if they can't do what they have said or dedicated themselves to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Do you, just a quick follow-up on that too, in 4 years, have you seen it to be more of a challenge to recruit your board positions, or has it gotten easier?
I would say it's a little bit of both. And that's probably not a great answer. I would say we definitely see more volunteering for sure. One of the things we did differently this year at our conference was we really feel like we've been in this rebuilding stage, right? So this was the first year where we're like, no, we're actually going to promote MRPA at the conference. And that sounds weird, right? But not really, because like at the registration table, everyone's just checking in and doing their thing and then going on their way. But we wanted to be more intentional so that they could learn more about the association and what we do. So even at our exhibit hall this year, we had a table, right? We decided to take one of those exhibitor tables away from a vendor and give it to us and talk about us, and gave people the opportunity to do that. Granted, they were also filling out a bingo card and getting free gifts. Right. Free gifts, but whatever. Yeah. But I think that's important, right? We're trying to make sure that people know who we are. It's not just about me, and that there is a board and that there are these opportunities to support the association to move it forward. We've gotten more people. There's definitely more interest, but it's always tricky because it is the commitment that scares people for sure.
Jay, before you hop in on a question, I think I just want to follow up on that. I think that's the intentionality of that is not something that I think anyone would. I think we could gloss over that pretty easy, but how impactful that is, because I think we've all been in discussions with people where we assume someone knows what we're doing, whether it's an agency or even a discussion where you assume that the full conversation's already understood, like some of the context. Right. But I think there are people. In fact, I talked to someone the other day that's a new member of your organization that we were talking about off call, Kristen, and she's trying to figure out a little bit about what this industry is and what her role in it is. And so just assuming that because they go to the state conference, they know what the state conference is and does for them, is probably an assumption a lot of people get caught up in. But I love that y'all took a booth back to say, this is what we do for you, because I think there's a lot of people that go to that conference and says, well, my boss told me I was supposed to come, or, a colleague of mine said they came last year and had a good time, so I'm just attending. But not a lot of people know at state or even national level what these associations completely do for them. They're just attending because, it's been recommended to them, or this is the next step in the process. So that's incredible. I think that's really wise to do something like that.
Yeah, and highlighting those individuals too, where you're at a big public gathering, whether it's an awards or a social, there's a kind of a contagiousness to that as well, where individuals see like, oh, wow, look at that individual, and they were recognized, and whatever it may be, but to put the spotlight on them for the whatever contribution, large or small.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's important too to note like the number of new professionals that are out there, and supporting them and making sure that they feel comfortable at the conference has been really important to us, because those are the people that are going to keep moving up right now, right? So we've really tried to, make sure that it was one of the like first things people like really were pushing at me when I started was how uncomfortable people were when they were going to meetings or to the conference, and that it was that awkward 24 hours, right? And we were trying to somehow get in before obviously the 24 hours and make them feel more comfortable right away. So we've really tried to work on that piece too.
Well, I'm actually really glad you just said that, because I was very impressed with that title, was new professionals. And Shane and Tom and I, obviously, our history, we knew each other from the Young Professional Network, and I've been to a variety of different state conferences and national conferences, and it's always Young Professionals is what it's titled as. And you guys titled it as New Professionals, and you had a little social for new professionals. And the three of us were there, and we were meeting new people. And I give you kudos to kind of rethink that process for people to meet each other with that term. But I'm curious, like, what brought that up and how long that's been going, because it's not just young professionals. It may be someone that is in their 30s or 40s that is new to the profession. And I saw that in the room, and I think people appreciate that opportunity to come and meet people that they wouldn't have met if there wasn't a new professional social.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you asked that question, because it was a topic when I came on and we were going through these changes that we did put into play, because they are two different things. And when you hear young professional, you're like, I don't fit in that anymore. Right? That word already makes you feel not included. And we didn't want that to be the case, because you could be 40 years old and coming in as a new assistant rec director. And we want you to be included within that, because really you should be. So our new professional, we made sure we were being very intentional about using those words, not using the young. And it's for 5 years and under. So we also had that conversation, because at one point they were like 10 years and under. I was like, 10 years? I don't know if I called that like new to the profession per se, right? So we did end up going with 5 years and under and new to the profession. So you're going to see your 22 right out of college. Oh, you're going to see your 45-year-old that just, moved over from the Y to rec within a municipality, right? So you're going to see those differences within that. So absolutely. Yeah. New professional, 5 years and under. And again, we've learned where we're trying to do those kind of networking things towards the beginning of the conference, so that they meet a friend. They're not doing this on their own. And that's why we have been trying to do that. And we've done it in different ways over the years. I'm always changing things. I'm always trying to find the right way to be doing things. But I think the way we did that this year did work out well. The feedback's been great.
Yeah, that was really neat.
You mentioned a Y person coming in as a new professional. And I think, even though I talked about your background in recreation, I think most park and rec professionals would say that the Y is different in some capacities to Parks and Rec. And you kind of have to, you have to do things a different way in the Y than you would do. And you even mentioned in our conversations, you and I, Katie, that you had Y experience, but you didn't know about the municipal side of things. You really leaned in heavily on that side of it now that you're serving, municipal park and rec employees.
Right.
What do you think the biggest difference is? Because there are some YMCAs and larger agencies, and there's a city municipality there as well, right? And so, I think when I started in Fort Worth, there were, I think, 18 rec centers that were city-owned rec centers. I think there were 6 or 7 Ys, right? So I think in some ways they're serving communities that aren't being served by the rec center capacity. But then in maybe Mass or some of these different parts of the world, a smaller town is only going to have one or the other, right? It may only have a Y or may only have another facility. And so I think in some ways those people do serve a little bit more like a park and rec professional than the Y in like a larger municipality, for example. So what were the differences when you hopped into this side that you didn't see that you saw on the YMCA side?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say there's a ton of similarities, but to your point, there's also so many differences. And, the Y is a nonprofit organization for starters, just like now MRPA is. So at least I have that nonprofit hat on, but then I'm managing an association that is predominantly municipality employees, right? So that's where my learning curve came in, is I have all the recreational hats on, and I've run, as you said in the beginning, almost everything under the sun at the Y, which is connected to what our park and rec professionals are doing as well. I think one of the biggest differences, I mean, it's this way in the Y too, is rec professionals wear so many hats. It's unbelievable. And I would say in the Y, you're doing the same thing. You could be, managing aquatics and wellness at the same time. You could be doing different departments. But within the towns and the cities, they're running large departments that are maybe similar or not similar. Like here in Mass, a lot of our departments are just primarily recreation, which is why our conference is a little bit more heavier on recreation than the park side. But we try to keep that included because we want 100% have that. And we're fortunate we have some DPW workers that come to our conference too, because they do see the need for that. But we have some directors who are now running council on aging. They're running cemeteries. They're running museums. Like they kind of get thrown. I feel like rec people, because they're able to wear so many hats, get thrown all the things.
Yeah. Jay, from your experience in the Y, is it also, it's that tax base in some ways, right? Like the Y could operate like an LA Fitness as well. In some ways, you feel like you've bought a membership, you're going, but at the rec center level, you're right. If there's a cemetery in town and Public Works doesn't want to run it, guess what? Parks is probably the manager of those cemeteries. And so there's that tax base responsibility that probably didn't come with the Y. Is that what you would agree with?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the membership aspect changes things, and then there's a deeper connection typically with the Y, in my experience, with their members, because they're paying that monthly due that they're expected, certain programs, certain expectations on a daily basis, where, people in all municipalities, they may have a recreation center, community center, it may or may not have a membership-based fee. And you may not see those people on a regular basis. My mom goes to the Y in Buffalo, and she is there probably 4 or 5 days a week taking a fitness class, and it's the same people every class. They have their friendships. They meet for coffee after in the lobby. Not to say those things don't happen with park and recreation agencies, but it's not as common because of just the sheer facility that's available to them. Not every rec center, community center is going to have a fitness facility or going to have the room for these programs that are, YMCA standard is going to have full gymnasium, aquatics component to it, multi-purpose rooms, some sort of fitness. So you kind of know what you're getting there with the rec centers. I mean, when I was in Mecklenburg County, we had 22 rec centers. They all had some similarities, but not always the same. Whereas all of the Charlotte YMCAs pretty much have the same facilities or same amenities within them.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
There's, and I'm not trying to debunk that, but we have a bunch of Ys here, and there's 2 in the city of Rochester at least, and then there's an east and a west side Y. So let's say there's 4 or 5 or 6 YMCA locations. One of them in the city is very small. It's like a half gym and a couple rooms. And so I guess, and I know the individual who used to be one of their program managers there, who used to do a little bit of everything, and now he's a director in the town of Gates for municipality, right?
They're great launching pads for park and rec professionals, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess my question is not to get too deep into the why, but I guess for Katie and Jay, I feel like that we do a lot of the same things. And the facilities, to Shane's point, it's all relative to what kind of place that the current area that you're in, right? You may have a really affluent town, city, whatever, that has this massive, beautiful YMCA, and you may have one across town that's just kind of a smaller one. And I think that's the same with recreation. You might go to Pflugerville, and you're going to have the largest community center in Texas soon, right? You're working on it. But you might go to a city or a town not too far away from you that has smaller facilities, right? It's different hats. I'm going to be wearing different hats because I serve my community than Shane's going to be wearing in his community.
That's an interesting question because we don't talk about the tension, but in some agencies, the Y is a 4-letter word.
It's
a competitor in some ways.
My kind of question that I've always asked and never really gotten an answer is why aren't we attending the same conferences? Does the YMCA have this greater association that I'm not aware of? I'm assuming they do.
They have their own conference though. That's the truth. Is I've gone to them. They have their own conferences, and not to say they wouldn't benefit to come to our conferences, but their operations are very different. So
the governance is going to be different.
100%. Yes. Yeah. So they do their own conferences and they're great. And I actually went to one in Rochester, believe it or not, Tom. And
I don't believe it either. That helps you.
They are ran very similar, and in some cases, there are a lot of municipalities or town cities that don't have park and rec facilities and they only have YMCA's or vice versa. So in those areas, the Y is serving as that local park and rec department, even though it's not called local park and rec, it's called the Y. But the after school program, the summer camps, the sports leagues, they're all ran through the Y because that's the only option that's available for them.
And talking about context and thinking that some people know and some people don't know, we could probably articulate that well, but I think your average Joe Q public wouldn't know much of a difference between, the Y offers this service or the department. They probably think it's the same group. They probably take a YMCA sports league and say, it's the rec, the city runs it, or vice versa.
I know, Tom, we have had this conversation before. So I live in Charlotte. I can go to a YMCA for swim lessons, or I could go to my local park and rec center for swim lessons. Growing up in Buffalo, the YMCA was the only option. I learned how to swim at the YMCA. I didn't have a local rec center to do swim lessons or go to a soccer league. I went to the YMCA. So that's where, in some cases, that's what people know. And that's what they grew up using because that's the only option.
Yeah.
They teach you the song there? Is that where you got the song? Because he sings it all the time, Katie. He sings.
He does. Jaybird.
All the time. Jaybird will just break out and throws his hands in there. Speaking of conferences, one thing I think we were all struck by as well that, Katie, I kind of mentioned to you before this, and I'd love to get into it more. The responsibility you bear as the executive director of the state conference, when it felt like to us, a lot of your membership, at least the ones anecdotally that we talked to, didn't feel like they needed NRPA. So, and I think we were struck by that in some ways. A lot of times we go to a conference and you see people that also go to the national conference, but at least in my interactions, and I think the guys as well, you didn't have a lot of people that felt like they needed an RPA. What they needed, they were getting from your conference. First of all, a hat tip to you. That's incredible. And maybe NRPA needs to do more outreach in mass. I don't know. But it felt like they were getting what they needed professionally without a national conference. But the weight of that has to be something that you worry about from time to time. Or you're trying to serve everyone, enough.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of refreshing, hearing the words from you that have come from other people, because I don't always hear those things either, right?
Yeah. You're doing a fantastic job. I'm telling you, as someone who's been to other conferences, it was an amazing conference.
It was. And you're not going to probably hear those words so much because they don't have the comparative. And that's similar in New York too. I feel that there's some states that have a huge contingency, and Katie, we combine socials at NRPA because we might be bringing 15 to 25 on a given year, and I'm sure the number's similar for you. So anyway, sorry, I'll let you answer Shane's question.
Okay. No, that's okay. And I think, so again, I was saying to Shane, I was I've been here 4 years, just about 4 years, just over. And I feel like I started yesterday. I'm always saying that. I still don't feel like I'm quite where I need to be. And that's okay, because we keep changing here at MRPA too. And with that comes the education of just what we're doing to support our members from an education purpose, but also getting them to recognize that NRPA does exist. And I try to be intentional even about our weekly communication. I always have NRPA in there and things that they're offering. But we are so new professional heavy too. I think that has impact on it too, where if they don't hear it from us, I'm not sure they're hearing it, right? And that's why that new professional group, I do think, is so important, and for us to support them so that they realize why they should be doing these educational sessions and these trainings, not just through us, but through NRPA too, because that's going to help with their professional growth as they're moving forward.
You're very heavy in new professionals. Also, I would say you're probably pretty heavy, at least as a comparative on a national scale, of smaller agencies. I think we also talked about that.
Yeah.
Those are probably two characteristics that NRPA doesn't see a lot of participation in, for a number of reasons that aren't probably related to NRPA. The travel for a small agency to be able to afford that is probably pretty difficult. And for a new professional to be able to afford the travel nationally, sometimes hundreds or if not thousands of miles away from, where the person is based out of. And so those are probably difficult as well.
Well, and that's why too, we, with MRPA, we have our Killcoin grant, which is devoted just to professional growth for our members. And we're always trying to promote that so that we can support them in that process too. So if they did want to go to director school, or, take some kind of training that's outside of MRPA, we're going to assist them in doing that as well. We even offer it for our own conference, to be honest, because there are people who can't afford even just to come to the conference. So we do support that piece too. And that's why when we do our auction and the raffle and all these outside things, that money's going right back into the professional growth of our members.
Now, we talked earlier about the board setup, and I'm just curious because when we had Nick on the podcast, there was a question for Nick on, what his goals are and what some things he wanted to shoot for. And as a one-person team, and you mentioned it earlier, it's just you. When someone like Nick comes to the table and have all these grand ideas, how do you balance that, knowing that it's just you and you're relying on a board that hopefully is in support of what he wants to do, but obviously there's limited resources there for some things to be accomplished?
Well, she's managing one Nick, but two personalities. That's not easy. Right? You got Nick and Rod that she's got to deal with.
I mean, it's always tricky every year, just because, again, the turnover is happening within the board. I do think there is some consistency in that there's progression through our executive board. So they have seen the movement or been part of the movement and what can happen. I like to test things. So as you heard me say, I'm always changing things up, trying to see what really works. I think I'm just still in that stage of what works, what doesn't work. Although this conference went really well. So I think a few things I may be keeping. So I don't look at it as, I guess it's a challenge, but not in a bad way, a good way, and to see if it's something that we can step up and do. Because again, we're in that period now where we're starting to look more for additional change, and not just be in the rebuilding stage and figuring out where can we go, what can we do, where can we have the conference, because we're finally in a state where we can have those open conversations and dialogue, and be more strategic in our planning.
You may outgrow that space you're at right now fairly quickly if your growth continues.
Close, but it is a really good, they are, shout out to the Sheridan in Norwood. They have been amazing. And there's definitely comfort certainly in that and having a newer facility. And their food's really good.
We learned the hard way.
With the food.
We did. The good food.
We walked to a place that wasn't as comparable, I think.
They are great. That facility I could recall from the first go to. They're really great. And if they didn't charge you for all the room service that Shane ordered yet, then
I apologize.
Bonus points to them. So, you mentioned that you were basically when you got brought on 4 years ago, it was kind of a restart.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the challenges, and that's what I'm going to ask you about, is maybe a specific challenge, but one of the challenges broader is that when you try new things, you have individuals who are familiar or comfortable with the old, with the way it always was. We've talked about this with new directors of park and rec agencies, and this is a little unique though. I think this is very unique in the sense that you have membership that could easily say, I don't need to contribute. I don't need to be a member of MRPA.
Sure.
Was there one specific change that you could recall that you were the board and yourself were pretty nervous about bringing to the general membership, whether it was a fee structure or, something conference where that might have really kind of flipped it on its ear, that it was a challenge, but it ended up being the best decision going forward, knowing you might lose a couple people.
Yes, and you took the words out of my mouth. It would be a fee structure. When I first came on, and again, everything was run fine. It wasn't that. It was just recognizing where we maybe needed to modify some structures in order to get to a better place. And certainly our membership fee was one of those, and the conference fee. We'll just tie them in together. It was just fees in general, and recognizing that in order for us to be able to offer other things throughout the year, just membership would need to go out. I don't know if I had too many people, to be honest, not move forward with us because of it. Everyone's going to grumble, right? There's always going to be the thing, and someone's going to say something, and we just have to own that. But we hadn't raised prices in years. So when it was that consistent, we had to over communicate why we were raising, but also that we were going to continue to keep raising. So that's what I was clear about when I started, was not only are we going to do this, this is why we're doing this, but I want to be clear, we may have to do this every year or at least every other year. So what I've tried to do since I've been on is, and I've worked with the treasurer on this, is membership every other year and conference every other year is what we've tried to do. Because it also came into play where people are like, well, I'm building my budgets now. I need to know now. And our fiscal year runs different than the town. So there's always that little hiccup. But now that people know just to expect it, it's something so small, but like just expect it. No one says anything anymore.
That's great. We're almost hypocrites at times, because for our own program and fee structures,
right,
we look at inflation all the time, and guess what? We're raising minimum wage. We're raising the price that it costs to go on a bus for a field trip. So summer camp users, so sorry, every year that's going on. I mean, and I know other agencies are probably trying to hold the line, but we're typically, that's going up every year based on
and then our
any of
membership
those.
goes up. We're like, what the hell is going on?
Yes, exactly. Or and I hope that I hope that a lot of people listen to this, but I hope none of the vendors that I work with listen to this. You get a bill from your software provider and you're like, why did that just go up? Right? Exactly. It's same thing with an association fee. We have to understand that there's a lot that goes into that. And
I think a lot of people don't then think about what really goes into the association. Like, although it's me, there's a lot of pieces that just to manage and support and have a nonprofit organization go into play, right? Like everything costs something, unfortunately. So
Tom's rider, his everything that came with booking Tom, that's expensive, right?
I gotta say,
guess what? Membership, it's going up next year. We had to pay for Tom.
I assume Annie got the same treatment, but when we arrived to that driver, my name was on a tablet, you know, so not your guys.
That went to his head, Katie.
It did. That's been a lifelong goal of mine for well, check it right off.
Oh, you're welcome.
I mean,
only the best.
all three of us had the same contract, but yes, only Tom had a driver.
That's right.
Well,
he was nice enough to share them. Yeah.
The contract you saw was the same.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
Katie, your leadership profile was probably stretched going into this. Definitely some imposter syndrome, right? Because you'd never run a state agency, and now you're being asked to run a state agency in this way, or an association, sorry. But it seems like to me, as someone that I highlighted had a communications major, it seems like that's heavily into your leadership profiles. You're a communicator. In fact, that's how you led me. You're like, Shane, when are we meeting? What are we doing? You know, let's hop on the day before. And would you say that you leaned heavily into your background, your major there? Is that part of your leadership profile, is really communicating where you're at, where y'all need to go, how you're going to get there, etc.?
Yeah. No, I definitely think so. I mean, I'm hoping that's what's led me in the right direction, hopefully going in the right direction. I'm definitely, like I said, I started as an aquatics coordinator and worked my way up, although I wasn't, in the same field and municipality recreation. I was at the Y. Professional growth was happening at that time, certainly, and that's developed me to manage lots of people. And now I'm managing more member-based, right, and a board. So there's a lot of crossover. It's just, different situation. I would say too, one of the things that people may not realize is, we have executive directors, and we're not all called executive directors, just like everyone else. We all have different titles throughout the country, right? There's an executive director group, CSED. We actually meet monthly, and we're not necessarily affiliated with NRPA, but we are connected with NRPA. But those people have been my mentors too. I think they've kind of been my saving grace through this. I meet all the time with the New England states. Many of you probably know that. But
that group's probably very diverse as far as their background and work history, right?
100%. But I think that's like what actually has helped me the most. And I mean, there are amazing mentors who have been in my role for like 30 years. Eleanor in Florida has been there for a long time. Great. Michelle Wells, Jim Hadley, Steph in California. There's so many people that are just like a wealth of knowledge. And the people I just mentioned actually are much bigger associations than me. So sometimes I'll sit in a meeting with them and I'm like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, we're so similar, and their door is always open, and they're so willing to like work with us smaller states to help us. I've just learned so much from them. I wish I had met them a year sooner. Because it was kind of the tail end of COVID and I didn't go to my first meeting until just about a year after. And I just sat in that meeting and was like, oh, I wish I had you in my life a year earlier. Like it just was so comforting to meet them, and they're just a super valuable piece of what I'm doing here. So yes, I feel like I've grown as an ED, and I certainly have brought on many of my talents from the work I've done in my previous life, but they've been heavy supporters of mine too.
Well, you mentioned Michelle Wells, who's our executive here in North Carolina,
Yep.
and they do a phenomenal job year round with everything they offer. And I'm just curious, and you may not want to answer this, but I'm wondering, when you have an association like North Carolina that has 3-4 full-time staff plus part-time staff, and then you mentioned yourself being a part-time staff member. I mean, it's pretty standard across our industry, like from a municipality, that people want to grow and they might want to look to be a director or a superintendent of a larger municipality, and they kind of move around. Is that something that is similar that you've seen in other executive directors and state associations, that they might jump or, from one smaller state to the next? Or is it pretty much standard, people stick with it and stick with their state for their entire career?
From my observation from my time, I haven't seen a lot of jumping, to be honest.
Okay.
I can't name one person that necessarily jumps from a state to a state. I know a few people that have, because they're larger associations, that have moved up from an assistant or whatever they may have been up, which is always lovely to see. You want to see that growth within the association. Sometimes it's just tricky while we are all meeting and hearing, they have a marketing person and tiers of staff, which is tricky. But I think, here in Mass, we're in a position now where we can talk more about that, because 4 years ago, we couldn't even have that conversation, right? So that's where I'm saying, I think we all have potential of potentially getting there, depending on just where your association is and where your numbers are going. And we just weren't at that point before, but we're getting to that point where I feel like we could move to a larger association staff base at some point. Fingers crossed.
The profession is a really special profession. I think we all four of us can agree on that. I believe that the association piece of it is a very special profession as well. And that's from my experiences of just being around NRPA, not just in the state of New York, but to Katie's point, the names that come to my mind, the Tim Herds of the world, Eleanor, Michael Ann Lord, these individuals were with these agencies for a very long time. It was obviously enjoyable work, and you see that. And Jane Addams, right? Jane was in California, and instead of fully retiring, she ended up going into another association that was Parks and Recreation based. So it's very interesting to see there's almost somewhat of a loyalty and just a real appreciation for probably the individuals who make up the membership there. And I would maybe just ask you that, is that, from where you were, obviously, having some of the Y background, but one of the challenges I always wondered and looked at through the lens of the associations is that they are serving our profession in a different way. It's an indirect way. So you get to see the awards, the successes of those agencies, and get to share in those successes. Can you maybe touch on, for anybody who's looking at potentially a career shift, and we've had people, Michael Biedenstein has went from practitioner to NRPA association management, but can you kind of share a little bit to that, the pride and joy that you have for the individuals, the members, based on this profession?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with, not just even being the ED here, even in my previous life being at the Y, right? Like, I think as a good human, you feel good, and recognizing you see that growth within the individual. So whatever that might be, whether it's a lifeguard becoming an aquatics coordinator, or someone within the town moving up, from an assistant director to a director, I think I actually need to think about that more, like that I might have some influence on that. That's hard, to, when I'm managing something so big, breaking it down to feel like I have an impact in that. I don't think about that enough, probably. But I certainly, in everything that we're doing with our trainings and supporting our staff, and it's particularly with those new professionals, like I said, we've really been focusing on those. So to see someone go from an assistant director to a director to a superintendent, there's going to be pride in that, because you have to recognize that we've supported them through that process. Not just me, but MRPA as a whole too.
Yeah, it's a good lesson for the new professionals, or just in general. those board positions and going and talking to Katie, the executive director, just introducing yourself, what that could potentially lead to
Yeah.
is another opportunity for growth.
Yeah. And I think too, like just being a part of the association, that's what it's all about. Like our association is just about helping each other out, right? Not reinventing the wheel and having another hand to hold. I really believe that. And that's what, helps our everybody move from position to position. Like I've definitely seen jumping from town to town within my state.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the ED roles, but I'm certainly seeing that happen. But that happens because they become close with someone in that town or has that networking ability, or that rec director isn't the rec director anymore, and now they're the town manager. Like you see that progression sometimes happen too. So, the association certainly supports the growth and the movement that's happening within the field.
Okay, we're going to do a little round robin, and I'll kick off the first question. And I kind of want to stay on target a little bit with what we've been discussing. So my round robin question is, you're going to get a chance to attend one or two of your peers' state conference, right? Maybe it's North Carolina, maybe it's Texas, maybe it's California, but you're going not so much to professionally develop to attend the sessions, right? But you're going looking for what? How are they handling vendor check-in, check-out, or registration, or what two conferences are you going to in other states, and what are you looking to learn from them?
To be honest, I don't have any on my docket right now, but I should. But if I did go to someone else's, I think my two things are just watching the flow of the schedule in general. Like I know that's big picture, but I think that's one of the most important things is seeing what people are doing. And that's one of the things I try to do this year is be really intentional about more time on their own and breaks and just it not being rushed, right? Like making sure there's some smoothness to that just to see if there's something I can improve on that. And then just seeing the difference in what they're offering from a different leadership standpoints, like from that new professional to our seasoned professionals to the director's workshop, what that might be. And seeing if they're all wearing sneakers while they're running around. Because that was my one lesson this year. Why am I not wearing sneakers the whole time? So
I wore
my
sneakers
one learning that came out of this year, it took me 4 years. Sneakers all the time.
Katie, it was hinted as one of the clues when Shane was describing who the guest was, something about Maine. So I'm just curious, where are you from in Maine? Are you from Maine, or did you live there for a period of time, and where?
I sure did. I grew up in Bar Harbor, Maine.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the water, and now I'm landlocked in the middle of Massachusetts. It's really hard.
So my wife is from Maine and got married in Portland, and we're going back up there for a wedding in June. So we go up there a little bit here and there.
Especially the Old Port. It's my favorite.
It's great.
Yeah, beautiful.
I think we asked at least 10, maybe 15 individuals who were at the conference of where we need to go eat in Boston. And I don't think we ever asked Katie.
Right.
That is funny.
So,
oh my God.
Maybe she could have steered us in a better direction.
I don't know if our mistake was asking too many people, because we got a lot of different
analysis by paralysis.
I'm more interested to hear on what they said. Well, so I'm going to be completely honest. I don't go into Boston that regularly.
Okay,
it's kind of funny. Like I feel like when you come to Mass, everybody's like, Boston, Boston, Boston. Like,
sure.
No, I don't mean it in a bad way. It's like kind of funny because like a good example would be like my nephew had a basketball tournament. Just because it was in Massachusetts, they're like, oh, it's in Boston. So like she's like, it's in Boston, it's in Boston. It was an hour away from Boston. It's not in Boston. It's like Gillette Stadium. It's not in Boston. It's in Foxborough. Right. But anyway, one place I went to recently was the Union Oyster House in Boston. And it's the oldest restaurant, I guess, in the country. I think they said, or definitely.
I think we walked by it.
We did walk by it.
Yeah.
And it was so cool inside. So I actually would recommend that. I like vintagey kind of stuff and going in and being like, thinking back to who sat there and like those things. I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about Massachusetts, certainly, is you're going to find a lot of that around here. But I just think those kind of things are cool. I mean, there's always going to where, the Cheers, which isn't really the Cheers, but.
We walked by.
Yeah. But at least to be able to say you saw it is a thing.
Well, that would have been good to know. I would have liked to go into the what was it called? The Oyster Bar?
The Union Oyster House?
Union Oyster House. Yeah. So, the one everybody said go to this area and get Italian. Well, there was
Not as easy as they say.
there was at
Oh,
least
the North End.
yeah, at least 17 to 20 different Italian restaurants. That could be very conservative. So when you have
Yeah.
that many that are that good, we got so many different suggestions. I don't think there was a duplicate. I think that it was just like one person
That's
said this
funny.
place, that place, and then we tried to go to one and they told us it was a Friday night, so shame on us, but they don't take reservations either at a lot of these places, which is super
Yep.
unique. They're very small.
I was going to say
And
they're all super
yes.
small. Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was 6:30. We walked up and they said, "Yeah, come back at 9:30. We'll have a table for you."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I
they're
think
all
everyone
very
else that
clean.
was visiting had the same plan of like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to North End for Italian. And before you know it, no one's getting in unless you got there super early.
Yeah, I've definitely waited in line just like you. I know, but the food is delicious. It is very good.
So when I opened the questions to the guys, I said, what trip would they take with us? If you were leading RecLess on a trip, where would you take us?
So I actually have to agree. I think anyone going to New Orleans is like amazing.
Yeah.
And I have been there once. It was a Y conference, but it's just, you can't. It's amazing, especially with your friends. I didn't get to go with friends, so I'd like to go with some friends.
Well, we're not going as friends. We're going as no, I'm just kidding. No, New Orleans is great. We're going as frenemies. No.
Frenemies. That's too funny.
Well, this isn't so much a question as I just wanted to thank you for the way that you treated us as guests and presenters, and and I've done a couple of these, and everybody treats us very well. It's just you guys definitely take it to a level that I don't know that we expected. You have a professional driving service pick us up and drop us off, and those drivers, by the way, both of them were phenomenal.
Oh,
I don't know
good.
if you know anything about that service, and
Use
they were
them
great.
again.
Like they
Yep.
were great. One of them on the way up, he really put up with a lot of Shane's shenanigans in terms of he was all pent up from the travels. So he
Yeah.
put up with that. But not only that, he let us stop at a Wegmans, which I have a lot of experience with. But Jay has a real strong place in his heart because he doesn't get to go as often, but he knows the power of Wegmans. And Shane
Oh my
had
goodness, that's too
never
funny.
experienced it, and he let us hang in there for like an hour.
We were there for a while.
Really?
So again, we probably should have asked, is MRPA getting charged more for this or not? But he was like, no, I don't have to be somewhere for
I'm gonna go back
till
and look
whenever.
at that now.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Had to
then
get monsters.
on the way back, the driver, we had a great conversation about his extremely unique profession, but he also let us stop at a brewery that Jay wanted to go to. And so, yes, you're getting a theme here. I'm not the diva. Jay obviously gets to choose all of these things, but we stayed at that brewery for like 45 minutes and he was just so great about it. And so
Oh my goodness,
from
that's
that experience to the way that you all treat us, you and Mark obviously go above and beyond to make sure that we knew exactly what we were going to experience, and the communication piece prior to the facility. We already talked about that being kind of top notch. And then finally, but definitely not least, your contingency is they're just great people and we're so appreciative to have us there. So we just wanted to put that out there. If there's anybody who is looking to go to a new state to present, definitely reach out to Katie and Mark. They are, it's a great state and they treated us with nothing but kindness first class. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And not just to present, but if other people want to attend a different state conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've done that as well, and when as not as a presenter, but just as an attendee, and it definitely is a plus RAN conference.
I will say, if you're speaking with a professional driver and you somehow unearth their passion, their professional driving ability does start to go down a little bit.
There were some scary moments, and
Oh,
no
geez.
pun intended, scary moments. This guy he was a horror film, like, what did he
He's
do?
an artist.
Yes, he was a horror
Yep.
film
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah, he
mean-
made sculptures and
Yes.
And as soon as we start talking about that, we were in some horror film scenes ourselves.
So,
Oh,
I'm
geez.
not gonna lie, the phone came out a few times in his hands.
This has been great, Katie. Thanks so much for being on.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for having me. This has been amazing. And thank you guys too. We were so thrilled to have you at the conference. It was such a unique experience for our members, and Mark and I, for the past however many months we've been talking, have been giddy about this. So thank you.
Well, the release was today, so hopefully.
I know I'm gonna get off and
Yeah.
go work my magic and
Let's hear it.
people know it released. So thank
Awesome.
you again.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on, Katie.
It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
being with
Katie.
us.
We'll talk soon. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye. Bye, Katie.
Bye.
I think I used the term annoyingly good. That's how, or annoyingly happy. Like that whole conference was just completely happy, joyful, elated. People were happy to be there. Everywhere you're going, people were having so much fun. It was a very impressive display of what a state conference can do for its membership. I was very impressed by it.
Yeah, they do a really nice job, and that trivia social, we obviously just kind of watched from the background which was really funny. That was a funny moment. There was a gentleman who came up to us with a fake microphone, and he knew that we were, there doing what we were doing. And what was they're thinking of starting a podcast, and they're calling it, I think it was Get Wrecked.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
that. He asked us to join into the fun, which we didn't, but we were made aware later that trivia and whatever they were doing that night, that was the final night too, right? Before some people are tuckered out by then. The energy did not slow down, and they were going for a good portion of that
and to their
evening.
credit, they don't start sessions at 8 or 8:30 in the morning. I think they started at like 9:30. So
9:30.
they know that the socials are important. They know that they're going to be carrying Andy Frizzoli on their shoulders at 3 a.m. And so don't make people attend or skip an 8 o'clock session. Start it at 9:30. Let people recover. And I think even the awareness of that is to their credit. I just thought it was a well-run conference, and I was excited to have her on. The timing worked really well.
Yeah.
And she was super nervous. She was like, I don't know what I have to say. I was like, no, y'all ran an excellent conference. And, sometimes this podcast these episodes are about exposing our listeners to some really cool things. Sometimes it's also about giving people their flowers. And I thought, I thought Mass did a great job. It's such a well-run conference. So
Agreed.
I agree. And for the record, we didn't go to Wegmans for me. We went because Shane had to get Monsters.
Had to get a Monster.
I will take full ownership of the brewery on the way back, but the way there,
well, come on.
But
we could have been at Wegmans for 10 minutes for my Monsters. We were there an hour for you.
I'm going to dispute that a little bit, because the driver had no idea that we would have any kind of connection or desire to go to Wegmans. So he said we can go to a gas station or whatever, a Walmart or a Target. And
because I'd asked for a Walmart.
Yes, he pulled us into a plaza. He goes, should I stop at this Target? I'm like, yeah, if they sell Monsters, let's go there. That's when we saw Wegmans. It's not like it was like he gave us options and said,
but we weren't going to stop at all if it wasn't for Shane. Like if Shane didn't need Monster, we would have went right to the hotel. So it was Shane's reason we stopped.
Shane did need a Monster, but once we got to Wegmans, my portion was covered pretty quickly.
Shane and his little Monsters.
Right.
I don't know. If you walked around, you got a donut, and you were searching for just checking out the scene.
I did. I didn't want to rush the greatness that was the brewery, the brew experience at Wegmans, the alcohol scene.
Good times.
Well, fellas, thanks for being on. That was good. Katie's great. Mass is really impressive. Mark and those folks. I mean, there wasn't anyone I didn't talk to that wasn't having the time of their life at that conference.
No, absolutely. I appreciated how much, I appreciate this out of any of the states, how much they check in on you just to you got what you need. And all of them, when I was in Pennsylvania, they have people that go into the rooms before every session just to make sure. Same thing with New Jersey. That's very important, like just to make you feel comfortable. And unfortunately, we put Jay on an island one day. He got used to the good life where I had a little clicker. He goes in the room. Mark in Massachusetts treated us so well that Mark goes in to check on him, and Jay's like, "Where's the clicker, Mark?"
Where is the clicker?
He was really aggressive
Mark?
about it too, and Mark's like, "Well, that's not my clicker." And yeah, Jay had a little bit of fit. He almost walked out.
Yeah, we're gonna get a 2 out of 5
You
stars.
reminded me I need to go on Amazon and buy a new clicker.
That was fun.
And you know what? If we do this again, I'm not gonna let you borrow it.
Oh.
Well, I have my own. It's all.
He wasn't going to let us borrow it, even though he wasn't presenting that hour.
He wasn't. So
what if you lost it?
If we go back to a conference together, I'm going to go in your bag and take the batteries out of yours.
Well, you know what? Mark and Katie, they'd be prepared. They got an extra set of batteries, I'm sure.
I'm telling you, she's a communications, her leadership style. Because as soon as I reached out to her, she was game. But then she's reached out to me. All right, we're 3 days out. What do you need from me? And I sent her some things, and then let's hop on the day before. And I was like, cool, let's do it. But I was like, Tom does this. I don't hop on. I'm like, I'm a disaster. I send me a couple things and I'm going to wing it. But she didn't. She was leading me for sure. She did a great job. And I really enjoyed that episode. I was glad to have her on.
Yeah, awesome. Good time. Good conversation.
All right, till next time. I think Tom, are you next?
That's the plan.
In a couple days.
That is the plan.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. Until next time. See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Follow RecLess Podcast on YouTube for more content and outtakes. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for news and exclusive clips. RecLess Podcast is edited and produced by Hannah Mize. Thanks for listening. See you next time.